Hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of my Arpeggio of Blue Steel Ruminations. I'm going to give some brief thoughts before I begin the episode, I'm going to watch the episode, and then I'm going to immediately give you my thoughts afterwards using the notes I took during. That's going to be kind of how it goes. Alright, so I've already talked about the series in general. This episode sets up the world of Arpeggio, the story, the main characters, as you'd expect from any good first episode. And in that respect, I'd say it works as an introduction to how the series is gonna go. I don't remember a ton, but I have watched the first part of this series through already. The second part is gonna be going into it blind, so what I do remember is the effects and the soundtrack and the sound design were really impressive. And so were some of the characters, kind of. You'll see what I mean. Alright, I'll see you on the other side, guys. Alright, we're back, and I've just watched the episode, and it's nice and fresh in my mind. And I took a couple pages of notes while watching it, so let's get started. Episode 1, Those with Shipping Routes. The intro we get to the story is very Attack on Titan. It's kind of told in hazy flashback where we see humanity beset by an overwhelming enemy force. The year is 2039, and there's this mysterious force called the Fleet of Fog that has a bunch of glowing battleships, and they face off against humanity's combined navy, and it's not even really a fight. We lose badly. We feature in the intro some really awesome classical music over awesome battle scenes with lasers and missiles flying around. Very exciting stuff. The Fleet of Fog itself, the enemy, they look like old-style Imperial Japanese World War II battleships. That's kind of their styling. But they have high technology, like energy shields, lasers, and against modern technology, it's not even a fight. Like, we can't get through their shields. That's the thing. The Fleet of Fog attacks us after global warming has already kicked our ass, so, we destroy our own planet, and then the aliens release the Ursa. And that's the backstory. Then we cut to 7 years after the final stand. We actually start the story then, when the world is effectively under a giant military blockade from this completely mysterious force. They haven't communicated at all, presumably. We don't know anything about them. We just know that they came to this planet and they fucked us up. And the whole world is under blockade. Communications are cut. Undersea cables cut. Satellites gone. They blew up all our satellites. They don't allow people to move across the oceans. Every nation state is effectively isolated. And they have the upper hand. They could destroy us at any moment, but they haven't. They're just stopping us from interacting with each other. And as you can imagine, many nations, especially like an island nation like Japan, have really started to crumble due to being so cut off from each other that we can't even confirm that these nations still exist. And we actually pick up with Japan trying to launch an SSTO, a single stage to orbit spaceplane, to re-establish contact. And to stop us, the Fleet of Fog has deployed the light cruiser Nagara to go out and fuck up the Space Center. You'll recognize many of the names from this series if you're a Kankole buff or you're a history buff, because, they're drawing from Imperial Japanese ship names. Amatsukaze is dropped. Kankole fans will probably recognize that. Alright, one thing you need to know is that even as a light cruiser, Nagara is pretty OP because fog ships in general are absurdly overpowered. For the purposes of the story, they're essentially angels, as in the enemies from Neon Genesis Evangelion. They aren't quite at that level, but the Tokyo military isn't doing nothing against Godzilla, if you know what I mean. As just a small example, the stats for the cruiser Nagara as a given is that it is making 60 knots across the surface of the ocean. That's really fucking fast. That's really fast. And this obviously leads into the introduction of our heroes as they come to stop the Nagara, and they get a dramatic entrance. The introduction to our heroes is pretty dynamic. It's an action thing. They arrive in their own submarine, a Fleet of Fog submarine, no doubt, clad in blue steel, which is where the title of the series comes from. And they take out Nagara with one single torpedo using Fleet of Fog technology, getting through the shields. They kind of hit it with a black hole thing. It's like a Mass Effect 3. The Reapers had a gun that shot black holes. By the way, don't issue your invading army with that if you want to plan it when you're done. Okay, yeah. We then learn that the submarine is called I-401. The AI controlling it is named Iona. She is the ship. It's like a ship girl. That's the purpose of the show. It's that Mecha Musume, that Kankole thing where, like, this AI controls the ship and she is one with it and da-da-da. And so the crew and the protagonist interact with Iona and through the ship. So, with their intervention, Nagara is totally fucked up, the SSTO is launched, and our protagonists take a moment to talk with Iona, their ship. There's some discussion about how the fog ships are just weapons and they just follow orders. They kind of bring up the idea of living weapons and, we're just machines built to do this and that. They kind of bring that up over and over. It's just a little bit here. Part of good writing is, weaving it in, so it's not bad at all. And then immediately, as they succeed, we flash back with Iona to her actual awakening 2 years in the past when she met our protagonist, whose name is Chihaya Gunzou. And he's a cadet at the local naval academy. In fact, he's got a little bit of a prestigious name, or an infamous name. His father died in the final naval battle against the Fleet of Fog, and he kind of gets shit from people because there's rumors that he's getting special treatment because of his father, which is actually hilariously true in the end. That actually turns out to be very true, so that rumor's true. We also hear that his dad, quote-unquote, defected to the fog, which is a really interesting thing. They just kind of drop it there and they don't do anything with it right now. But that might be one of the reasons why he gets shit at school. And the fact is, nobody can say for certain because what happened at the final battle remains classified for some reason that I assume the story we'll get into later. Chihaya is sent, along with a bunch of other promising officer candidates, to see a naval secret so they can pass on secret information. And, I got some problems with Chihaya's personality sometimes, or Gunzo, I guess I'll call him. His personality sometimes bothers me, and I had a line that I actually writ down. What a joke, they're just trying to pass the torch. No shit, that's how the training new officer things goes, buddy. They're clearly setting up this guy as an outsider, a guy who was alienated from others. He has a small circle of friends, but he's kind of the lonesome, brooding genius, and the build for that is very standard. Anyhow, he's among the group who's taken to see this top secret thing, which is actually a captured enemy ship. And given that what I just described, that the enemy is invincible and unbeatable, that's kind of a big fucking deal. According to the officer guy leading them around, I-401 sailed into harbor with its weapons locked right after the final stand, and it just kind of let them take it into base. And of course, the potential this represents is mind-blowing. If they could study the submarine, reverse engineer its technology, even just get it to work, that would turn the tide of this conflict. And that's the thing, that's what will turn around the war potentially. Or at least make it into a war, and not us being subject to the whim of some asshole living battleship fuck glowing things forever. This is huge, but it's been sitting here for 7 years, impenetrable, unmoving, silent, inactive. We can't scan it, we can't do anything. It's just been sitting there. And then on a whim, Gunzo reaches out to touch the blue steel. And as you can imagine, that's the thing. The ship starts up, Iona wakes up, the shields go up, the engines start, the ground shakes, everything's going nuts. And there's a minor detail to the scene that I really liked. The first thing any of the adults begin to say when shit goes crazy and the ship is reacting, before they start telling people to run away, the guy says to the other guy, "Start gathering data." 7 years of waiting, and finally! It's like Brent Spiner in Independence Day. It's a little thing, but I like that. I like noticing small things. Also, they're picking up graviton ratings. Another clear reference towards a science fiction titan, that is, Will and Jaden Smith's After Earth. Can't sleep. Too many gravitons. So anyway, everyone runs away, and later, while Gunzo is just hanging out with his crew in the chow hall, Iona arrives to arrange an actual meeting with him. She mentions his father by name, and he assumes it's a student pulling another prank on him. And yeah, the way others treat him is the characterization we get right now, but, so he's kind of resistant. But she manages to get through to him that this is something important. She even makes his tablet display a little map where she wants to meet him, which is another minor thing, but it introduces us to an important part of the series. That being, fog ships can do whatever the plot needs them to do. Absolutely whatever. Iona, from God knows how far away, just kind of hacks into the tablet, which is probably connected to the internet, I guess, although I guess the internet doesn't exist anymore. Man. The living will envy the dead. Anyhow, I guess it's two things you gotta get used to. Fog ships can do literally whatever, and the show presents a lot of little or minor things it expects you to just glide past, whether or not they make any sense, and oftentimes they really don't. You can imagine how well I do with that. Alright, we're going to assume that not all fog ships can hack all human technology. Because if they could, then Nagara could have just shut down the whole space center and stopped the launch instantly, so obviously that they couldn't. So only Iona can do it, and she can't do it to other fog ships, or she could do it and just win a fight instantly. So that's the explanation that makes me humble the least. So we'll roll with it. And yes, I know we're not even supposed to think about that even a little bit beyond, oh, she can do some techie tech things. Whoa. So hey. So Iona's waiting for him at the docks, and we get little hints of her whole I'm a machine, what are feelings, what is humanity thing. It's not bad, it's pretty well presented, and I find Iona one of the more likable characters in this series. She's got that sort of emotionless robot thing, coup d'eire thing going, but she's like curious about, living creatures and feeling, and she's asking questions, and the protagonist talks with them. It's like Edie and Commander Shepard in Mass Effect 3, or Commander Data in Star Trek TNG. It's good, I like it. Alright, and she actually states basically the only thing she remembers is, quote, to meet Gunzou, the son of Chihaya Shozo, and obey him. That's her one directive that she remembers. She doesn't remember anything else. She has amnesia. She knows how to run the engines and the torpedoes and stuff, but about the fleet of fog, about why this is all happening, why she was sent to serve Shozo's son, she doesn't know anything. And yes, it's amnesia to start off the plot. Everyone take a drink. But it is a nice way to keep the fleet of fog a total mystery while having a defector from them join your ranks, because you can have them fight on equal grounds without just revealing all the mysteries right away. You can kind of unravel it. So hey, I don't have a problem with it. So I do expect to rag on Gunzou in the future, from what I can remember, but this is a cool bit. Iona asks him what his purpose is, like an AI asking for laws. And his response to this is very good. Quote, I want the strength to break this stagnant status quo. That's pretty good, I like that. And this does lead into a scene that had me actively asking, was that necessary, dude? At my computer screen the first time I watched it, really. It's a really cool action scene as Iona kind of cuts herself free of the secret dock with her lasers, and she sails out while the defenses try to blow them up, and Iona and Gunzou make their dramatic escape, and it's what I'm gonna have to unfortunately categorize as dumb action. None of that was necessary. This situation could have been really easily avoided. And I don't expect Iona to understand these kind of social things like explaining yourself. Gunzou's supposed to be this brooding genius guy. I'd assume he'd figure it out. Why do I call it dumb action? The source of the conflict is that the government is holding Iona in this dock, and they think she's trying to break free because she wants to rejoin the fleet of fog and fight them again, so they're trying to stop her. They don't actually know Gunzou's in charge at this point. And if they did know, there's every reason to expect that they'd stop firing. Unlike surface warships of the fog, which literally shrug off cannon rounds, the human defenses actually start to hurt Iona, because, she's waking up, she's never had a human on board, and she's trying to calculate physics, and, she's a submarine, which is a good choice for a protagonist ship for, we'll get into that when we start getting into the battle scenes later, but, okay, basically, her shields begin to buckle. We're calling out the shield numbers. We're in danger. We could actually be in trouble here. So get on the radio and fucking tell them what's going on. Just tell them. At least try. Then, if the authorities still don't listen, then you can bust out and do all the action movie shit. But come on, you didn't even try, dude. You wanted this to happen. In fact, Iona's shields don't just buckle, they go down. She's directly hitting the stern several times. You just got your brand new, priceless, irreplaceable submarine girl damaged, dude. Iku would never approve. This is the first scene in the show that truly bothered me. I won't say it's bad. It's actually really cool, like I said. You got I-401 rising out of the water before Gunzou as the choral music swells to a crescendo in this. It's really damn impressive. And if I had to pick between a smart scene and a thrilling scene, I will admit many times I'll pick thrilling. I don't want a bore fest of people always doing the realistic smart thing 100% for most things. But that's a false dichotomy. That's not the choice we have. As a writer, it's kind of your job to figure out ways how to have the awesome, sensational scenes in a way that makes sense. It can be done. It has been done. Examples are all around. I'm not asking for something extraordinary here, right? And given the show is clearly trying for deeper meaning and themes and trying to make you think, it's not too much to ask that it also thinks about the story, right? Again, that's not unreasonable. Quote, We are weapons. We exist only to go into battle on command. That's why we desire orders. Iona gives us a bit of insight into fog ships in general, or at least the front that they wish to present. Whether or not they actually believe in it anymore, we'll see that later, but this is how they are presented. And the reason Iona is doing this is because she's following orders. And we obviously get the impression that there's more to it, like friendship and feelings and stuff, but that's how this all began. And we get a tender moment between Iona and Gunzou, and I have to admit, their interaction in this series, I remember it was pretty good. I remember really liking it, and it kind of makes up for the fact that the rest of the human amigo characters are kind of really flat. Really. It's not a major point again, so let's move on. Quote unquote, ever since that time, we've been fugitives. Nobody to blame but yourself, dude. Again, you didn't even try. Now, given what we later learn about the big bad government and all that, maybe talking wouldn't have worked, and you might have been forced into this anyhow, but you didn't even make a token effort. Imagine if I, as a pilot in training, go to base and steal the biggest, most expensive fucking top secret fighter plane I can find and just fly off it into the sunset one day. The government would not be unreasonable to consider me a fugitive. Now, that's not a one-to-one analogy, especially since Iona is a person and not property. She decided to go with Gunzou on her own. But from the perspective of the Navy, I mean, there's nobody to blame here, dude. In fact, as we'll see, he likes it better this way, with him as some kind of freelancer backed up by having a priceless war asset in his pocket. It's like multiple power fantasies rolled into one, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that at all, in my opinion, with power fantasies. But remember, this guy goes from random gifted cadet 437 to probably the most important guy in human history for what we know in an afternoon. And it so goes to his head. It would probably go to mine too, a lot worse. We'll see that later. Anyhow, we see him talking with a government man later in the office. And this conversation has a few interesting points. And as we learn from this, Gunzou is not a naval captain at all, as I said. He's like a freelancer independent dude doing jobs for the military, and he reports his completion of the SSTO job, and good work, we couldn't have done it without you. And the quote I wanted to go from Gunzou is, quote, if you'd hired us sooner, we could have reduced the damage taken by the military, as in during the battle against Nagara when human ships were destroyed. I'm going to choose to interpret this in a more flattering way, which basically is Gunzou saying, if we'd heard about this sooner, we could have come help. As the government guy points out, long-range communication remains permafucked, but it's a nice sentiment, The other, far less flattering interpretation is roughly, we could have helped sooner, but we weren't hired to do so, and so we didn't. And we saw multiple ships just blown apart. I'm guessing the crew aboard those ships did not have good days. And according to the latter interpretation, our heroes could have stopped it, but they were waiting for the payment to clear or whatever. So we'll go with the former. They don't actually discuss payment specifics at all or any kind of reward, so it's very possible things are much less mercenary than I'm portraying. That's just the impression I got. We later see that the military is resupplying Iona regularly, but that makes every sort of sense you could possibly think, so hey, maybe that's the pay, maybe it's just their basic survival instinct to give Iona stuff. Also, there's one more point to remember for the coming episodes. Keep this in the back of your mind as we watch. As Gunzou makes to leave the room, the Kaiba Corps, suited bodyguard dudes make to block his way, but the government dude calls them off. And he says why more simply than I ever could. If anything were to happen to him, she, Iona, would attack us. Just remember that for later. As a final thing, the government guy reveals that the SSTO they launched was destroyed in orbit anyhow, since the fog can do anything they need to be able to. It is an effective little reminder of the sheer reach and influence. Despite being a fleet of ships on the water, they have conquered this planet. The war is so over. We lost, dude. And, as the G-Man notes, aboard the SSTO was a sample of a new weapons technology developed by Japan. It's called the vibration warhead, and it's capable of getting through the shields, which are called Klein fields. As in, if we can mass produce these and shoot them at the enemy, humanity might finally be able to strike back. The only problem is Japan doesn't have the industrial capacity to actually make the damn things anymore. It's too messed up. So, our hero's next and most important mission ever is to get the vibration warhead to America, if it still exists. If you've looked at a world map recently, you might recognize an issue with having to go all the way to America. As in, there's some nations with big industries that are a bit closer to Japan. Yeah, one in particular I'm thinking of, but there's actually a bunch. I don't know, maybe the global warming totally fucked over China, coastal cities. It's not that big a deal, it doesn't bother me. So anyway, there's the goal. Deliver this thing to America, create hope for humanity to strike back, good stuff. We have a very clear goal. I like it. Also, a line by one of the NPC crew when they're told they can't take this overland to other nations due to infighting, post-apocalyptic Mad Max shit happening on the land. To think, we can't trust our fellow humans. This series has a very strong individualistic bent a lot of the time, and that's perfectly fine. I lean more towards collectivism, so it's kind of bothersome to me sometimes, but that's really super subjective. I can't say good or bad. I can say some things to come will continue to annoy me, to various degrees. Anyhow, off we go. We've set up the world, the story, the characters, the opposing force, the goal. It's clear. The things that should be clear are clear, and there's still plenty of mysteries. As far as the first episode setting the game board and setting the tone, I think they did a really good job. And we conclude the whole thing by getting a glimpse of the fleet of fog and some of the ships and their big bad boss, Congo. Not that Congo. That would have been entertaining. And we see that already fog ships are individuals with distinct and powerful personalities rather than emotionless weapons. Congo tries to do the "we're only weapons, we follow orders, da 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 da." And we get to see the ship Takao that will be sent to stop our brave heroes. Heavy cruiser Takao. Takao? Yeah. And she's like, "Ha ha ha, I will crush them." And so, "At hard justice, Pope, I will beat you." And then finally we cut to the awesome OP for the series. I love the opening to Arpeggio. I will look it up on YouTube just to kind of watch it over and over some days, because the music, the visuals, great opening, I don't want to put it on because I'm afraid of the content thing like everybody. But it's good. It again sets the tone for the series. It starts with energy, which I think is kind of important for openings to like action things. Like one of the greatest examples ever of that is both Attack on Titan openings for season 1. I was really impressed with the way every episode starts with energy, even if the tone of the episode is way more depressing than that. It starts it with a burst. And Arpeggio's opening also does that. Overall thoughts? Yeah, not bad. In fact, not just not bad, good. I would definitely rate this good. I'm not going to give a number rating. I'm not going to score on categories. It was enjoyable to watch, even though I couldn't help myself from thinking in some points. Thinking should never be the enemy. And this points to some lingering issues that are going to get worse and worse as the series goes on. But we'll see that later. For now, we're starting. It's important to get a strong start on your series, too. Yet another thing Attack on Titan did. I'm just going to keep referencing that because I'm such a huge fan. At least of most of it. In any case, that was episode 1. Feel free to leave what you thought about the episode below in the comments. If you haven't watched the show and you're just watching along, let me know how I did with recapping and giving the general ideas and analysis. And obviously this is sort of an experiment, so I'm trying to get down the balance between just saying what happened and putting my own analysis and opinions and keeping this under like 4 hours, because I have probably talked for quite a while right now, and hopefully this was enjoyable. Hopefully there were some thoughts in here that even, whether you watch the show or not, you got something out of it. And we'll be continuing with episode 2 next time. See you then.